This is Billa Rajendar, lecturer in English, Government Degree College, Nantani, District Peddapalli. Today, we would like to discuss about the figure of speeches in English language. Almost all these are all used in all sorts of the language presentations, like essays, short stories, dramas, and uh, and especially poetry. We can use the figure of speeches in normal way. It creates a great impact on the reader's mind, as well as and writer also is expected to do. That means expected to write more figure of speeches in their writing languages. So authors often use figure of speeches in both literature as well as in the poetry to enhance their writings. So all the writers, they normally use the figure of speeches in their writing literature and especially poetry to enhance the writing and to the readers has to be identified with the good uh, readers has to also identified with good writing skills of the author. And figure of speech presents ordinary things in a or in new or unusual way. What is figure of speech means? Here, figure of speech presents an ordinary things in new or unusual way. They communicate ideas that go beyond the words usual little things. So, what is a figure of speech means? Before we learn about the figure of speeches, first of all, try to know authors often use figure of speeches in both literature as well as in poetry, and figure of speeches of present ordinary. They present ordinary things in new or unusual way. They communicate ideas that go beyond the words usual literal meanings. Usual literal meanings. In my by the end of my lesson, you should be able to know and recognize figures of speeches and identify the figures of speeches in the poems. So look at the figure of speeches here. Speech here. Oh, it's raining. Cats and dogs out there. Wow, it's raining. Cats and dogs out there means it's not. It doesn't mean that there are cats and dogs, but the rain is. That means it's raining heavily. In that sense, here we would like to express our feelings like, wow, it's raining cats and dogs out there. It doesn't mean the cat and dog, they are raining outside. It means the rain raining heavily. A figure of speech is a departure from the ordinary form of expression or the ordinary course of ideas in order to produce a greater effect. Once again, a figure of speech is a departure from the ordinary form of expression or the ordinary course of idea in order to produce a greater effect. That's what the figure of speech is. And the types of figure of speeches, you can see those based on the construction, like example, climax and anticlimax, based on the construction. And those based on resemblance, like simile, metaphor, personification, apostrophe. And those based on association, like metonymy, synecdoche. Those based on the contrast, they are antithesis, epigram, like that. And what are the difference between literal and figurative language? That means the figure of speeches may be found in literal and figurative figure of speeches we can find they are used in languages. And what are the difference between these two? We have to learn it. So normally in literal, the actual ordinary meaning of a word language that means what it appears mean. It's a literal. And figurative, language doesn't beyond the normal meaning of the words used. The actual dictionary meaning of a word should be literal. Language that means it appears to mean also literal. And the language that doesn't thus goes beyond the normal meaning of the words used, that is figurative. So look at the sentence here. Morris, Harris, when I said any questions, I was using only a figure of speech. So it means it's a symbol. They just anyone, if you want to ask any questions, just raise your hands. This is the normal way of speaking in our classroom. So here, Harris, when I said any question, I was using only a figure of speech like this, raising my hand. So what is figure of speech? A figure of speech is a figurative language in the form of a single word or phrase, and it can be a special repetition, arrangements, or omissions of word with literal meaning, or a phrase with a specialized meaning not based on the literal meaning of the words. Try to understand once again. The figure of speech, a figure of speech is a figurative language in the form of a single word or a phrase. Figurative word. Figure of speech is nothing but a figurative word or a phrase. It can be special repetition, arrangements, or omissions of words with literal meanings, or the phrase with specialized meaning not based on the literal meaning of the words. It's not literal meaning of the words. Figurative meaning of the word. Figurative meaning of the word is most important for a figure of speech. A figure of speech is essentially a word or a phrase used in non-literal sense, like a figurative sense, or for rhetorical or vivid effect. They are plainly defined as saying one thing in terms of something else. What does that mean? Well, it's very simple. Actually, literal means talking the words in their usual or most basic sense without metaphor or exaggeration. Rhetoric means the art of an effective, persuasive speaking or writing. A figurative speech is an essential word or a phrase used in a non-literal sense for rhetorical or vivid effect. They are plainly defined as saying one thing in terms of something else. What does it mean? Well, what's simple actually? So the literal means taking the words in the as usual meaning in the dictionary is the most basic sense without the metaphor exaggeration. Rhetoric means the art of effective and persuasive speaking or writing. Then whenever you say something about you, don't mean it literally. You mean using a figure of speech. Let's say you are about to head out to the store and your mother says, you are better to take a jacket. It's raining cats and dogs out there. Does it mean your mom literally means animals are falling from the sky? No. It's raining cats and dogs means heavily raining. It's better to understand. It's better to take a jacket. It's raining cats and dogs. That means, in a figurative way, we have to think it as in literally cats and dogs. Cats and dogs normally they are not able to falling from the sky. To say frankly, in the figuratively, it is heavily raining like that. Then look at the figure of speeches. Anaphora, the repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of the successive clause to achieve an effect. The repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of the successive clauses to achieve an effect. For example, in simile. In a simile, a comparison is made between two objects of different kinds which have, however, one point in common. One point in common. The simile is usually introduced to be words like, as, or so. A simile is a comparison made between the two objects of different kinds which have, however, one point in common. The simile is usually to introduce to be words as, like, as, or so. As a heart panted after the water brooks, so panthets may my soul after thee, O God. as is the used here. So which are the sentences begins with the indicating with the examples of as or like, they may be put in simile. Comparing two things, two unlike things using like or as. Comparing two unlike things using like or as, we can take the simile. We bear her long like apparel on string. We bear her along, we bear her along like a peril on a string. The bride and the peril are unlike things. When you compare the softness of carrying the bride to softly carried peril, you are using a simile. And some more examples: she is she sways like a flower. She sways like a flower. She skims like a bird. She hangs like a star. She falls like a tear. Her temper was as explosive as a volcano, like that. My dog is as smiley as dirty socks. My dog is as smelly as dirty socks. The pizza is as cold as ice. The pizza is as cold as ice. Antithesis. An opposition or contrast of the ideas. Two opposite ideas are put together to achieve an contrasting effect. What is antithesis? Antithesis is an opposition or a contrast of ideas. Two opposite ideas are put together to achieve an contrasting effect. Love and hate, good and evil, peace and war and peace. In the antithesis, a string, a striking opposition or a contrast of the words or sentiments is made in the same sentence. It is employed to secure the emphasis. Example, speech is silver, but silence is gold. Love and hate, good and evil, war and peace, peace and war, like that. And antithesis, speech is silver, but silence is gold. Silver, gold, speech, silence can be compared as antithesis. Love is an ideal thing, marriage is a real thing. Love and marriage. So ideal and real. Many are called, but few are chosen. Called are chosen. Many a few. Many are called, but a few are chosen. Imaginary. The descriptive rating that appeals to the senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. Think of it in this way. Whenever a writer uses imaginary, the descriptive rating helps to create a picture or image in your mind. Imaginary means mental image, like an apple. An apple means, apple is a word which can simply, we can say, take it as an imaginary, because we can easily know the color of the apple and know the taste of the apple, and we know the shape of the apple, like that. Imaginary. And another example is that bride skims like a bird on the form of a stream. In the form of a stream. Bride skims like a bird on the form of a stream. That's skims like a bird on the form of a stream, like imaginary. A metaphor is an implied simile. It does not like the simile. That state that one thing is like another is, or acts as matter as another, but takes that for granted and proceeds as if the two things were one. The camel is a ship of the desert. The camel is the ship of desert. Simply, we have to understand without using as or like, we would like to compare two things. We would like to compare two things in one way, like this way. A metaphor is implied simile. It does not like the simile. That simile states that one thing is like another or acts as another, but takes that for granted and proceeds as if the two things were one. The camel is a ship of desert, and we are not able to use. We don't use like and as in this metaphor. That is metaphor. Every simile can be compressed into two metaphors, and every metaphor can be compressed into a simile. Thus, instead saying, Akash fought like a lion, it's a simile. And we can say that Akash was a lion in the fight. Every simile can be compressed into two metaphors, to a metaphor. Every simile can be compressed into a metaphor but every metaphor cannot be expanded into a simile. So we can make a simile as the metaphor, but metaphor cannot be made into simile. Akash fought like a lion, like a is a simile. Akash was a lion in the fight. It's a metaphor. The metaphor is a similar to the definition of a simile, but there is no one importance between the two. Remember, the definition of the simile has two parts. Two unlike things are being compared, and the words like as are used to make the comparison. There will be also two parts of the definition of a metaphor. And the definition of the metaphor is an implied comparison between two unlike things that actually have something important in common. The boy was a fish in the water. Boy is also fish, and that means the boy is compared with fish in the water, like this. Then go through with the differences between the metaphor and simile. Use the following example to figure it out the definition of the metaphor. Simile. Mike is like a teddy bear. Mike is like a soft teddy bear, as soft as teddy bear. And for this tense, we can make it a metaphor. Mike is a teddy bear. Similarly, the boy is like a pig. That boy is as messy as a pig. That boy is as messy as pig. That boy is a pig. That's enough. And alteration. Take a look at the following examples of alteration. Brad wears his blue and brown blazer. She springs like a beam of the brow of tide. Gaily, oh gaily, we glide and we sing. Six swans went swimming in the sea. So there is alliteration. That means the repetition of the words. Brad wears in blue and brown blazers. She springs like a beam on the brow of tide. Gaily, oh gaily, we glide and we sing. Six swans went swimming on the sea. Alliteration, have you figured it out yet? Yes. Have you more example to help to refine yourself about the definition? Alteration, Sue shook her silly silver hairy as the sun was setting. She shook her silly silver hairy as the sun was setting. Not alteration. Elizabeth easily eyed an elephant in the elevator. Then apostrophe is a direct addresses to the they did, to the absent or to be personified object or idea. This figure is the special form of the personification. Apostrophe. Oh, stars and clouds, winds, you are all about to mock me. If ye really pity me, crush the sensation and memory. Let me become as art, not, but if not, depart, and leave me in darkness. It's a poem in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818. It's apostrophe. Apostrophe is a direct addresses to the dead, the absent, or to be personified object and idea. The figure is a special form of the personification. Oh, lovely range, you golden trees. Oh, tell me why aren't you easy to eat? Apostrophe. Then, when you speak up into an object, an idea, or something who doesn't exist as if it is a living person. If you are speaking about an idea or an objective or someone else who doesn't exist as if it's living the person. It doesn't live in the person. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Darkness is the compared with a person, like old friend. I have come to talk with you again. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. It's a little star is compared as apostrophe. Oh, pillow, thank you for being my shoulder when I'm alone. Then personification. In personification, inanimate objects and abstract notions are spoken as having life and intelligence. Personification occurs when author or speaker gives human characteristic to the non-human objects. That means the objects are showed as living things. The lightning danced across the sea. The lightning danced across the sea. Personification. Like personification means inanimate objects or abstract notions are spoken as having life or intelligence. Personification occurs when the author speaker gives human characteristics to the non-human objects. For example, the trees scream in the raging wind. The tree scream in the raging wind. Can the tree actually scream? No, it's not a pen. That is the human trait, and so that use the personification gives the better description of the sound trees make in a strong wind. The willow tree shook her long hair. The willow tree shook her long hair. This example referring to the way that the willow tree's long branches sway in the wind, but saying shook her long hair. Shook her long hair means the tree doesn't give the characteristics of a human. The car danced across the icy road. The angry clouds marched across the sky. The stars in the clear night sky winked at me. The tulips, the tulips nodded their heads in the breeze. The stars danced painfully in the moonlight sky. The rundown house appeared depressed. The first rays of morning tiptoed through the meadow. She did not realize that opportunity was knocking at the door. Assonance identify identity or similarity in a sound between the internal vowels in neighboring words. Identity or similarity in sounds between intervals in neighboring words. It beats as it sleeps as it's clean. It beats as it sleeps as it clean. It is repeated. Assonance. Old age shun burn and rare to close of the day. Rage against the dying of the light. Dying of the light and old age, they are representing the same way, and rage, burn and rave the day. Johnny went. Johnny went here and there and everywhere. Johnny went here and there everywhere. This is what assonance is. And chiasmus, a verbal pattern in which as the second half of an expression is balanced against the first, but which part is reversed. A verbal pattern in the what is chiasmus? A verbal pattern in which the second half of an expression is balanced against the first, but with the parts reversed. Chiasmus, for example, I flee, who chases me, and chase, who flees me. It's a repetition, flee and chases. A flee who chases me, and a chase who flees me. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. What is the word used by the John Keats in his poem? Never let a fool kiss or kiss fool you. Never let a fool kiss you or a kiss fools you. Like this. Beauty is truth, truth is beauty, what the John Keats has written. Hyperbole. In a hyperbole, a statement is made emphatic by overtestament. For example, I have told you million times. I have told you million times. Hyperbole is about, without doubt, a single, the greatest thing in the history of the universe. I will literally die if you don't stop using hyperboles incorrectly. Think about the following examples of the hyperbole and you will later select the best definition for this figure of speeches. My backpack weighs a ton. My backpack weighs a ton. Another example, the wolf was 100 feet high. More examples, you could have knocked me over with a feather. You should have knocked me over with a feather. Feather cannot be beaten by anyone else, so it's impossible. That's what hyperbole. I have told you a million times. That's what the hyperbole is. Hyperbole is a major exaggeration or over exaggeration, overstatement. Hyperbole is a major exaggeration or overstatement. Authors uses the figure of speeches to emphasize a point or add humor. For example, I nearly died of laughing. That means it isn't It doesn't mean that he is going to die, but he was nearly die with the laughing. So this is what hyperbole is. Euphemism. Euphemism, a mild or indirect word of or expression substituted for one considered to be harsh or unpleasant. Preloved for second hand, passed away instead of died, sanitation engineer instead of garbage man, healthy instead of fat. Euphemism consists in the description of a disagreeable thing by an agreeable name. You are telling me a fairy tale. That's a lie. Good news, dear. I am going to be spending more time with the family. You're fired. Euphemism makes something be bad sound good. The old man passed away. Oxymoron is a special form of antithesis, whereby the two contradictory qualities are predicted at once in the same thing. I am busy doing nothing. That means it's an oxymoron. Doing nothing. That means he was busy in doing nothing. Oxymoron examples knows that known secrets. Secret is known. Orderly confusion. Orderly confusion. It's an oxymoron word. And defining silence. Defining silence. Conformed rumor. Awfully nice. Irony, the use of words to convey the opposite of their literal meaning. A statement or which the situation where the meaning is contradicted by the appearance or presentation of the idea. Irony is the use of the words to convey the opposite of their literal meaning, a statement or situation where the meaning is contradicted by the appearance or presentation of idea. Situational irony, verbal irony, dramatic irony. Situational irony, where the actions or events are opposite in result from what is expected. From what is expected. The verbal irony means where someone says the opposite of what they really mean or intended. Dramatic irony occurs when the audience or reader of the text of a text knows something that are the characters to do. A plight with a fear of fight. A plight with a fear of heights. A palate with a fear of heights. Saying, oh great, after falling the exam. In a horror movie, the audience are aware to their that there is a killer in the house, but the character does not. So, irony is a mode of speech which the real meaning is exactly opposite that what is literally mean conveyed. For Brutus, it is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. The quote that speaking Mark Antony is reporting to the Brutus in a tyrant is an honorable man. However, Mark Antony does not agree with this, and he is saying that if the Brutus is a honorable man, then everyone is honorable. In effect, there is no difference between anyone else and is intended to, as is indeed to, verse. Epigram. An epigram is a brief pointed saying frequently introducing antithetical antithetical ideas which excite the surprise and arrest attention. So keep calm, write an epigram, write an epigram, writing epigram, keep calm. Man, mankind must end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. John Kennedy F said, one of the president of the and almost all the writer of English literature, sorry, American literature. Live simply so that others may simply live. Mother Teresa words. A pun is the use of a word in such a way that is capable of more than one application than the object of being to produce a ludicrous effect. Is life worth living? It depends upon the levers and litotes, a figure of speech consisting of an understatement in which an affecting and affirmative is expressed by negating its opposite. In the in litotes, an affirmative is conveyed by the negation of the opposite. An effect of being suggests a strong expression of by means of a weaker. It is an opposite of hyperbole. The man is no fool. Very clever. There isn't hand anything won't eaten by I am hungry. There is not anything. There isn't anything I won't eat when I'm hungry. And for translation, I will eat anything when I'm hungry. That is what the retorts. And if a person is very intelligent, someone is might say he is not dumb or he is not unintelligent. After someone hears you, you must say that, thank you, mom, you won't be regret it. Metonymy. Metonymy. Metonymy is literally a change of a name. An object is designated to be the name of a something else, which generally associated with it. The crown for the king, which a word or phrase substituted for another with which it is closely associated, and also rhetorical strategy of describing something indirectly by referring to things around it. Pen is mightier than sword, and let me give you hand, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Synecdoche. In synecdoche, it's a part is used to designate the whole or the whole to designate a part. Give us the day, our daily bread. England, that is English cricket team, won the first test match against Australia and transferred epithet. Transferred epithet in the figure of an epithet is a word or phrase which describes a person or things. It transferred from the its a proper word to another that is closely associated with it in the sentence. The dreamless sleep. The distributional strings of epithet, a plump, rosy cheek, wholesome, apple-faced young woman. Transferred epithets, sleepless pillow, merry hours, unbreaked, fasted morning, drunken dark. For example, transfer epithet, I admit I was a fun day. I admit it was a fun day. The girl's experiences were fun, not the day. And interrogation, aka the rhetorical question. Interrogation is an asking of a question not for the sake of getting an answer but to put a point to merely effectively. Are you crazy? Can you imagine that? If you poison us, we don't die. Do we not die? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Not for accepting answers. And anastrophe, persuades you I shall. Anastrophe is rearrangements of the parts of the sentence or a phrase that changes the proper or expected word order. Exclamation. In the figure of speech, exclamatory forms is used to draw greater attention to point out than a mere bird or a plain statement if it could do. How sweet the moonlight on upon this bank. Climax. Climax is the arrangements of the series or ideas in order to increasing the importance. There are three things that will endure: faith, hope, and love. But greatest of these is love. Anticlimax. Anticlimax is an opposite of the climax, a sudden and distant form of higher to lower. It is chiefly used for the purpose of the satire or ridiculous. The loss of his family, he lost his family, his car and his cell phone. He lost family, but on the way of the anticlimax, we are making in the sentence that he lost his cell phone as well as car also. So from highly to low, we are mentioning about the anticlimax. Oxymoron. A yawn may be defined as a silent yell. Oh miserable ambulance, oh beggarly riches. Beggarly riches. Miserable abundance. Yawn may be defined as a silent wail. That building is little, but big as pretty as ugly. Cruel kindness, living death. These are all the example for the oxymoron. Onomatopoeia. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. The firecrackers made a loud kaboom. Both bees and buzzers buzz. The birds chirp filled empty night air. Onomatopoeia means it's a formation of words from the sound associated with it what is named. cuckoo, sizzle. Onomatopoeia means when you see this, buzz, like a honeybee, ring, that is cell phone. Buzz and rings are both are examples of onomatopoeia. It's all the sounds of the animals or things. Onomatopoeia means it's these are the sounds of the animals or things. Moo, buffalo, like cow. Boom, like a cracker. Quack, quack, like a dog, duck. Onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like its meaning. It can also be described as the use of words which intimate a sound. Other examples include the screech, wheel, sizzle, crunch, bang, joke, roar, growl, click, snap, crack, crackle, and pop. Paradox, contrary of expectations, existing belief or perceived opinions, it is made a statement that appears to be self-contradictory. War and peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, you can save money by spending it. A rich man is no richer than a poor man. And paraprodos, paraprosodikian. Paraprosodikian, your argument is sound, just sound lots of sounds. Paraprosodikian, a sentence or a phrase where the latter part of the cause the audience to rethink the former part. Master the Paraspodokian figure, and you will well, you're all well on your way to the career in comedy, as many jokes rely on this mostly hilarious trope. If could just say a few words, I would be a better public speaker, like a Stripsman. Pun a play of a play on words. Sometimes one different sentence may same the sound, and sometimes the similar sense of the sound may have the with differences. Like when it rains, it pours. When it rains, it pours. A horse is heavily stable animal. Time flies like an arrow. Flies like a banana. The two paintists had a good marriage. They pianist had a good marriage. They were always in a crowd. Understatement. A figure of speech which is a writer or a speaker deliberately makes a situation seems less important or serious than it. I have to have this operation. It isn't very serious. I have this tiny little tumor on the brain. I know a little about running a company. Comment by businessman. From this, I would like to conclude my session.